let's see if we have audio on Twitch. I think we do. And now YouTube. I think we do. I'm not sure if my camera is working. No, it is working. Okay. Alright. Alright. Hello everyone on this kinda spontaneous Thursday stream. May has been a little bit death marchy for me. It will be the last stream for this month, unfortunately. But I still managed to sneak in 2-hour stream for today for 5.6 preview and Biome Score version 2. If you're watching me for the first time, hi, my name is Ado. I work at the day job as a game developer. That's why the tagline real game dev, right? And what I like to do on streams is to dive deep in the topics that I don't know too much about, start fresh, show the real learning curve of some tools, dive deep into them kind of like you would if you just downloaded the engine, started the plugin and just started going at it, right? No preparation beforehand. I want to stay as true as being the first time user of a specific plugin on approaching specific topic. I want to be as close to that as physically possible, right? So that's the goal of the whole thing, right? No prepared bullshit when I pretending that oh, I'm stumbling on this topic for the first time. Oh, in 1 hour, look how much I did. And actually, that the guy spent 8 hours preparing for this one stream, right? So none of this shit here. And today we'll be jumping into Unreal Engine 5.6, the preview. So not everything will work. And Epic has a nice product board about everything new that came to Unreal Engine 5.6, right? And there's lots of shit here, lots of new shit. I would love to get into each and every one of those things, but I have time budgets. So I decided that, at least for now, for today's stream, I will start with PCG. That's been a topic, procedural content generation. That's been a topic that's been of great interest of mine when it comes to Unreal Engine, because it's kind of like free Houdini. I always wanted to learn Houdini, but never got around to it, and Epic is doing this PCG thing. Along with the geometry script, Niagara, and a couple of other plugins, it's kind of like a, cheapest version of Houdini. So I'm always, curious about using that. In my day job, I used it for gameplay purposes, because I'm not a tech artist. Neither have eye for visual artistry, nor knowledge for being true tech artist. I don't know too much about rendering, but yeah. And what I wanted to do, yes, do this, and yeah. But I like, diving into PCG, thinking about how I'll be using it in the future for the future projects, etc., etc. And they added lots of stuff. Most of it is optimization. Some of it is new nodes. Some of it is new debugging workflows. Graph customization. Lots of new stuff added to it. And supposedly, there's this plugin called Biome Core. I kind of looked at it like a year ago before I even started streaming. I looked at it. And it is a nice show-off of how you could use PCG to organize your content to start spawning some biomes on your open world level, right? That's the idea here. I'm not sure if it is meant to be taken literally, like, hey, just take this plugin and you can release the game with it. I'm not sure if that's the truth. but it shows how you could organize stuff, or maybe take this plugin and build your own version of it, etc., etc. And from what I read in here, I'm not sure if it is visible here, but lots of stuff that they pointed out here is actually all this new shit from product board. So I decided, hey, let's just, look at the Biome Core V2 plugin and see all of this new thing coming into play in this plugin and its new version, right? So I have it already loaded in. So I already have it loaded in. And first things first, if you want to turn on this plugin, go into Edit, Plugins, type in PCG, and toggle all those plugins on. Especially the procedural content generation framework, and all those external data, geometry, script interrupt, turn them on. And then, of course, turn on by PCG BIOME Core and BIOME Sample. Then, the editor will ask you to restart the whole editor. Click yes. It will restart, and that way, the whole plugin will become visible to you. And it resides in, if you open up the content browser or content drawer, you will see this folder engine. If you don't see the folder engine, here are the settings for your content drawer or browser. And click show engine content and show plugin content. That way you can click here into engine, then the plugins folder will show up. Then scroll down to find PCG BIOME sample content, maps, and here we are in the maps folder of that thing. Open up the BIOME sample level. That's how you arrive at this level. It will be loading for a little bit, then it will be spawning stuff, calculating and computing shaders, and then you will see things get spawned. First thing that kinda immediately shows up is all those red little thingies. There's lots of them. Do you know what it is? I think it is GPU micro scattering, which allows you to use GPU, I think, to both sample the landscape and spawn all those instant static meshes in huge volumes at the fraction of a cost it would take for you to do the same shit with the CPU. That's what they're showing off in here. And the same happens here. And as we can see, probably based on where is the position of the sampling, it takes different color. Here it is the dryland area, so everything is red. Here it is more green. And if we get into the heights, it gets to be the color blue. That's how I think the logic is, right? And if we go around further, we will see that, this micro scattering is being loaded in chunk by chunk, grid cell by grid cell. There's like the cool demo of how you can set up like a small vegetation, etc. We'll also go through that. Some water being spawned in here. Things are being spawned under the water as well, right? So lots of things to go through. There are ways in which this whole plugin decides where to spawn what it should spawn in here, why there are cacti and rocks in here in that way, where there are these kind of regular trees here, where there are these mountainy trees here, etc., etc., etc. One of the things that probably not today's stream, but I would love to do, is to swap those models into Megascan models and swap the landscape material into real landscape material and see how it would look like, how it would perform with real assets, right? Because for now it is just more like a tech demo. But without further ado, let's start to... Oh my god. Yeah, let's start diving into it. First, maybe turn on the stat detailed into here to see the performance. What will happen if I click play and I'll spawn as a dude. What is the, you know, frame rate? Frame rate is nice, actually. I mean, I have a powerful rig, but even powerful rigs can be fucked with Unreal Engine 5 in the development mode, right? So look at this. Lots of detail. Spawned via GPU, right? There's also like thingy spawn. If we go back a little bit, there are things spawn on the trees. So it's not only on the landscape, but look at this. Lots of micro detail on the trees. Think about implications of what you could do with GPU scattering, GPU spawning, etc., etc. It's gotta be really freaking awesome. Right? Okay, so we know that the performance is nice. The lights here are something to talk about. Everything is like way overexposed. But who cares, right? And we can see how those GPU details are quickly being instanced in front of our eyes. I wonder if the distance at which those GPU scattered details are spawning is being chosen to be this close for a reason to show you that it is happening? Or is it because that's the limit of it? Not sure, but I can tell you one thing when it comes to this example. There are two components to Biome plugin, right? One is a regular Biome core that is offline spawning stuff in here. And from what I remember from looking at the year ago, there's a runtime ground scatter about things being spawned in the runtime of the editor and the gameplay, if I remember correctly. And then there is the third volume, which for some reason I cannot select for the life of me. Like, it is unselectable. I'm not sure why, but we will find out what it is. There are a couple of other volumes in here. There is a volume, PCG BIOME volume, that spawns just one small volume that is broadleaf forest. And there's another volume called Coniferous Forest, which spawns something different, and as you can see, they can overlap easily. We have one spline in here, which also is connected to PCG BIOME spline to show you that you can kind of do a desert biome via spline. There's also this volume, nice volume, that shows you that you could use PCG and splines inside of it and volumes inside of it to basically create like a local biome core, which kind of creates a small vegetation. We can see, like, it looks like crops. Someone is, you know, tending to some crops, and here are the crops, and they are showing you how to do that. Is there anything else in here, volume wise, etc.? No, not really. So we can dive deeper first, maybe into the core of it, right? There's lots of instant static mesh components in here, and at the end of it, one PCG called Biome Core. Let's jump into that, shall we? And it's generating on demand. The Biome Core itself looks kind of simple because it gets actor data, PCG Biome actor. Oh, sorry, no, god damn. The content ID will trigger because I have this thing. Let me turn my phone to mute. Okay. So what it is searching for the actor called PCG BIOME actor to get its data. And then it sorts some attributes as actor reference in ascending order. And it selects actor by tags. Actor selection tag is this, and it searches through all the world actors. And it tries to find a specific component with the tag PCG local biome core. Okay, let's find anything of class, or wow, it's actually harder because it's not searching through specific classes of actors, only by tag. So I'm not sure which one it will be looking at. So I'm clicking A on my keyboard. And I see that the it found the actor called BP PCG BIOME core. A means analysis. It turns on basically a debug view of what this node is processing. Here are attributes that you can look at, right? Here are specific attributes that it is trying to sample, right? Here are specific PCGs inside of it that also could be triggered, right? We have one in here. We can, in other nodes, we can also look at what's going as input, what's coming out as output. There are lots of data sets that you can look through in here. If there are more, you can toggle specific attributes to be viewed or not viewed, etc., etc. There's something new. I don't know this. Opens data viewport panel. What does it do? Whoa, there is something new. I don't really know what it does do. Data viewport panel. What does it do? We have a viewport, but it's not really showing you too much. Another thing that I noticed immediately with the 5.6 preview, some of the UX changed. Like this thing looks completely different than it used to in 5.5. It is still the same menus, it's just different icons and different placement of it. So I don't mind it that much. I'm using, you know, shortcuts anyway. I don't get this data viewport in here, what it does do. Maybe when we will get to debugging points, we will see what this is all about. Yeah, graph settings. What about parameters? Ooh, it used to be parameters are being put in here, but they are no longer there. So I wonder where the parameters are right now. Open graph parameters. Oh, it's a completely different window and we can actually finally work with it normally, as you would do in the blueprint editor. Kudos to the epic team behind PCG. Kudos to you, guys. I think it is Adrian Logut. He is on YouTube. Kudos to him. And I also know one other guy that also signs all of those. Jean-Sebastian Guay? I'm not sure. I might be fucking up your name. Sorry. But kudos to you guys. You're doing an awesome job with all this PCG stuff. I really enjoyed everything. And your responsiveness on Discord. Guys, you can join the Unreal Source Discord. There is a PCG section there. And the Epic developers are active there. So, you know, you can always ask some questions. So we can work with graph parameters in that way. And if I click, if I close it, it shows the button. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. But first thing first. It takes the data from this PCG BIOME actor, which is named BP PCG BIOME core. Let's find it. BP PCG BIOME core. There's only one of those actors. We have it here. It has lots of empty stuff, and it has wait, that's some weird shit. PCG BIOME core is just that, and I don't get it. So this, okay, so this node, it takes the actor that actually has this graph in it. Okay, maybe that's some weird way of taking out the parameters from this actor, right? Because if we were to open this actor, we can see that it has trigger for generation and some cache, debug display BIOME cache. Okay, set bool parameter. It has two buttons in here. It has controls for that stuff, and that's basically it. Does it have any other variables or anything of interest? Not really. So it's just an actor with some PCG. All right. With it. Okay. So let's get back to it. Yeah, generate and toggle cache so we can look at it. Okay, that's one thing. But it takes some data from here, and it actually finds all of the actors that are having this tag, and it's the actor reference on level. It tags it whether it is a PCG BIOME actor, whether it contains a texture. That's interesting fact. Whether it is enabled, whether it is volume. Only two of those are volumes. I'm not sure what the specific means. PCG BIOME exclusion. There's only one. And which one is spline? Then the attributes are being sorted by actor reference. Then it is being separated into a couple of things. And things connected to runtime mesh scattering are not being dealt with in this graph because, let me remind you, there's a completely different PCG actor with its own graph that deals with runtime spawning, right? So all the runtime stuff is just not being handled here. Only generated points offline are being handled here. There's a grid size. Of course, cool, all the points that are outside of partition actors, which is a separate graph. Yep. Then it sorts the whole data from... That's actually interesting because it outputs generated points. There's lots of, as you can see, PCG point datas for search trees, rocks, etc., etc. So it already kind of sort of gets those points, but I don't get why. Because it is regular get actor data. It is taking the from input the actor reference, and then it searches for PCG local biome core, and then data retrieval mode is get data from PCG component and expected pins. Okay, so it takes that, takes those points, sorts them for each and every data. So for example, shared trees, all of the points are here. Whether collision should be spawned, visible, cast shadow. Wow, lots of stuff is being said in here. I wonder how is this data getting here from this point? That is interesting, and we will look into it because there might be some hidden chicanery going on in here. Custom biome data. When it searches for actors with the custom biome data, as we were seeing before, there are a couple of actors, like for example this one, PCG biome volume 2, and it has custom data. So you can, even though there is the whole volume encompassing the whole world in here, and it's doing the generation for the whole world, you can still add custom biome data and it will be gathered in here. There is some difference in here, but I don't see the difference between what and what. Post difference filter assemblies. I'm not sure what's going on in here. Then it just gets a big list of meshes to spawn for each data set regarding specific generation, and of course actors, which we have none of them. And then it does some post-processing, which actually means it does nothing because there's no post-processing graph in here at least. How about in here? And it is as set up as one of the parameters, right? Here it is none. Let's see how it is in here. Not really. Biome core parameters overrides. No, no post-processing for the big graph. Okay. And then there are runtime outputs when it is kind of doing the scattering of points for runtime stuff. and it gets sent as the output. Okay. And displaying debug values for biome cache. Okay. So it kind of looks like, oh, it's simple, right? No, because the only thing that it does is actually gathers data from elsewhere, right? So that's why it looks deceptively simple for the world that is being, you know, spawned in here. Something governs the rules of like, hey, where to spawn those red rocks, where to spawn those trees, where to spawn those rocks, how to avoid water, etc., etc. And it has to be somehow connected to this, to PCG local biome core. Because it takes those actors and it searches if we can see there's PCG biome texture something, right? So let's find those. It's referencing a specific actor to take data from. Let's find it. BP PCG biome texture. We have a couple of those. There is one that is just here. And it contains one PCG component that has a PCG, and also in its variables it contains biome texture color tolerance, local cache texel size, blah blah blah, and some definition of assets, coin fairness forest and mountain forest. Where should we look first? Maybe let's look into graph. There are also parameter overrides, max child asset depth, local preview, local biome cache. There is something called biome local cache texture. Okay, let's look into local biome core. What is this? I think that's the meat of the whole processing, right? That's where it might be hidden, because right now my assumption is there's a texture that has colors that are dictating what should be spawned where. There is some definition that take these colors and translates those colors into actual meshes that should be spawned there, with some variables for rotation, scale, scatter, etc., etc. And that way it knows how to sample this texture, place it onto the landscape, and assign to the points, select those points and assign meshes to them. Barabash is here. Meat. Yes, that's the meat of PCG. Or at least this example. And I also see we have the bot. The first bot on today's stream on Twitch. Lately, I don't think I have a stream on Twitch where I didn't have a bot, which means I'm doing something right if bots are targeting me. So let's ban this motherfucker. Motherfucker banned. How are you doing, Barabash? During this lovely Thursday, is it also raining cats and dogs and piss at your place? Because it sure is raining ugly in here. Okay, let's look into this. If I'm speeding too much, I'm sorry for that. It's basically mainly because I only have 2 hours to stream today and I really want to get through this whole example. Because next stream will be in June and I don't want to wait like 2 or 3 weeks until I pick up the part 2 of the stream. So I really want to, you know, be cohesive in here. Barabar says, yup, to my question about the weather at his place, and I think that's why I'm sleepy. Yeah, it probably is a part of it, but also let me ask you, what time did you went to sleep? Okay, so we have local biome cache. As we can see, the debugger is already picking up all those PCGs that we have on level ready to be debugged in here, right? So lots of this shit. So, first it is searching for a variable called local biome cache, which is being set up in here. Biome local cache texture. Then it executes a subgraph here called local biome cache. And this is an override of the subgraph, right? So it executes this graph, which gives like some kind of things as a local biome cache. And when the local biome cache is being processed later. Barabash answers to my question about what time did he went to sleep. Too late, 1:30 a.m. or something, I think. And it was because I was trying to retarget UE4 character to UE51. Oh my god, yes. It's pain. It is pain. It is pain. At my day job, it took us way too long to retarget some shit. I feel you. Barabar says, but this UE4 was customized for the plugin that I'm using, so shit is not working good. Yeah, that's always the problem with this shit. You have a plugin that demands a specific character setup and specific animation setup, etc. And then you have the UE5 version of it, and if the plugin maker won't retarget it on his own, you have to do it on your own, and that's PITA, pain in the ass. I feel for you, man. I feel for you. I feel for you. I'm not good with animations, and I remember trying to do something like this some time ago, and at the job, right when the Unreal 5 was being released, and that's pain. That is pain. So, you know, I would say I'd be praying for you, but you know I won't, so I'll do something else for you. On the priv. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, all the data from this graph that you can input into your local PCG that has some texture to it, which I still haven't seen how it gets connected in here. You can execute your graph in here. I think it is time to look at this graph. What it do? What does it do? It takes local cache texel size and it takes this texture and it samples this texture just as I thought. So maybe let's create like a quick in Paint things that are happening. The big ass biome core PCG takes actor data from the local biome actors, right? And there are lots of them. At least that's how it looks for now, right? Like, okay, maybe let's set it up as actor 1, actor 2, etc., etc. And this one actor contains a reference to a specific texture that gets sampled. Texture for sampling, right? Is it readable at all? And it also contains some specific local PCG graph, right? So that's how it looks right now. Biome core is searching for the data in the local biome actors, and they contain texture that will be sampled, which will show spatiality of where things should lie, and some local PCG graph to execute, right? And this local biome cache graph is used to sample the texture. Let's see what it does sample. Can I even see anything in here? Nah, not really. For some reason, it doesn't pick it up. It gets the definition, biome definition of something. And the biome definition is a property in here, which is confinous forest. And it also takes other properties that are being shown in here. and processes those attributes, in a specific way, local cache snap to surface, and projects it into wall rayhit query. Did they finally got them added the rayhit as I always wanted it to? Yeah, because previously the wall rayhit demanded that you would select one specific trace channel. So if you had some geometry like landscape and meshes on top of that, and you wanted to basically just trace down, and whatever collision it meets, it should snap to that, you kinda had to write your own shit, right? And I was thinking, like, I just want to take a bunch of points and throw them down. Whatever collision it lands on it. And at the day job, I had to create my own node for that. Here, it looks like it finally is done in such a way that you just take a shape type and it will just go down, and whatever it hits exactly as I wanted it to. Whether it will fall on rock, it will spawn on some mesh rock or some ruins or whatever. If it hits on landscape, it is a part of a landscape. Include landscape hits. Mwah, perfect. So now let's look at this texture, right? Biomes map. This is the texture. Lots of different colors, right? Each color probably represents something, right? So what this graph, biome local cache texture, does is takes the data from the actor, like the assets, the definition of it, right? And the biome texture and how it should sample it, arranges this data, then projects it onto the actual world, adds biome name to all the points, and as we can see, it is desert looking. It is, all the points are deserty, right? There's some biome ID that is just whatever. Biome's priority colors, but where are the meshes? It just creates one that I can see. On desert it is this, but what about that one? It has a biome name and it should feature a couple of biomes. No, Coinferous Forest is the only one that it features. Unless there are a couple of point data arrays. No, not really. And there is some biome ID, mysterious biome ID. Okay, so for now, I don't see a connection between those points sampled from the textures and specific meshes that are being sampled. Not yet. But it creates points already projected onto surface of everything that has a collision, right? Based on the texture, which is awesome. Landslide. That is awesome because it gives you the power to create biomes just by creating texture, placing those volumes with these textures on a specific parts of your landscape, and just putting in the definition, and you're done basically, which is an awesome workflow. Let's look at the definition of it, right? Biome definition. What does it contain? It contains the name of the biome, and it contains the biome color, which is blue, and its priority. So it tells us that, okay, whenever it samples the blue color and uses those sampled blue colors of the texture aligned to the volume. I wonder if I can turn on those debug caches, etc. I kind of want to. How the hell should I do this? Okay, these are those assets, right? Those trees. Yeah, what I wanted to do is to turn on the cache to show you the sample, but I can do it different way. Look at this. Let's take the texture data and let's just show it. You see? That's the texture that is being placed on top of the world, right? Or, at this specific case, in this volume, look at it. This texture is applied to this volume, right? And this graph is sampling this texture, applies it to the volumes, create points out of it, and projects them down onto landscape and whatever is colliding there between the points being hanging, you know, in the air on the way to the landscape. That is powerful stuff, right? Okay, let's turn that off. So after it is being projected, oh my god, it's not readable at all, but yeah, after it is being projected, this is the kind of shit that we get from all of that. And where's, yeah, here I have the window for it. Yeah, let's turn that off. This is what biome's local cache texture does in the local biome core. So that stuff created all those points for us. And now this local biome core. Debug display local biome cache. That's what I wanted. It is a parameter in here. So display, debug display local biome cache. That's what I wanted. So it shows you, okay, this volume only sampled color blue. Why? Because we gave it the definition of coniferous forest. Coniferous forest, when we saw it here, only responds to blue color, and that's where this biome will be spawned. Here's the shape of where the generation will be. That's amazing that we can look at it in that way. Let's turn that off. And it has spawned here. Barabar says completely off topic, but you pronounce cache incorrectly. Really? Huh. Okay, let's see how to pronounce cache. Cache? Are you fucking for real?
Cache.
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 Cache. Cache.
English makes no sense. But who am I to say that I speak Polish? And that's the most fucked up language, I think, among, you know, a couple of others super hard. Thanks, Barabash, I just learned something new. And I won't be making an ass of myself online. If my stupid brain will remember this.
Cache.
Cash rules everything around me. Right now, Wu-Tang Clan songs can be interpreted in two ways. Both money, cash money, and cache memory, right? And they would approve of this dorky message because they are nerds themselves. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So cache. Okay, cache. Local biome cache. It's probably coming from French, is it? So we have that. It sampled the texture, produced the points for our biome, and here we have it. But where does this whole thing knows where to spawn rocks, where to spawn trees, where to spawn everything? How the fuck does it do that? Generators, assets, That was the thing, right? Because we saw like, okay, coniferous forest is a biome, but what is mountain forest biome sample biome asset template? That's that shit. So it goes deeper, guys. Local PCG graph, right? Then it also has another thing for, what's it being called? Biome definition, right? Here we have biome definition. That's one thing. And local PCG graph uses biome definition for texture and texture for sampling to create biome points, right? Biome points that will be used later, right? So local PCG uses texture and biome definition to create biome points for this specific biome. And then it actually uses assets. And here is like a list of assets called mountain forest, which is a name of a biome itself. That's why I found it confusing, because coniferous forest and mountain forest, it sounded to me like two different biomes, but it's not actually. It creates the whole asset lists of biomes. So for example, mountain forest as a list of assets could be used in different biomes for different biomes definitions. It is probably cool that you can go that granular, but I also can see how I would probably turn it into a chaos quickly. So then we get those biome assets. Each one contains whether it is enabled, name of it, tree, the weight, some kind of generator, we will see what it is in the meantime. Transform graph, which probably means that's where we could input like a small PCG graph that takes a point and, for example, scales it, rotates it, does whatever to it that it needs. A mesh that should be used to spawn. Some debug options to show bounds, asset options. Oh, actually, you have both graph and some asset options right out of the get-go with the bounce and extends multiplier, rotation. You can change the scale here, orient upward, blend from generator point normal to world Z up. Okay. Self-prune. There are some mesh options, what material to use, so you can override materials and cast shadows, etc. Okay, remember when I was like weirded out, hey, when it gets to like here, how does it know all this shit? Detail mode, start, kill distance, assembly yellow, collision, influence type, blah blah blah. How does it know all those things? Now we know. It is from here. So that way you can steer whether your meshes will cast shadows, etc, etc. Assembly options, filter options. Oh, you have some density already in here. And some runtime. Oh, so what it means that whenever this tree is being spawned, there's also a runtime spruce microscattering PCG. That, if I understand it correctly, it is only being run during the runtime. And it is, let's look at it. No, it is not exactly a PCG graph. It is something called PCG assembly. So this is already a bunch of points to be used around PCG spruce to sample some micro scattered details for that, which is actually awesome. And there is the same thing for another spruce that is the exact same. What the fuck? Tell me at least that it has different, yeah, it has different scale. Okay, so that way you can have the same mesh with different scales. There's a pine and boulders. So now we know where does the actual meshes come from. So these are biome points. Also, actor contains as another thing asset definitions, right? This is a list of assets to be used, right? Like tree, rock, and all of its properties, etc. And this asset definition will be used for spawning with these biome points, right? So those two do a fusion, Dragon Ball fusion dance to actually spawn something, right? We created the points for biomes based on the texture and the biome definition. Having those points already, you know, projected down to landscape or whatever collision there is on the road to landscape. We have asset definitions, so we know what to spawn. But right now, I also want to see how it decides which points to use. And I'm guessing it is using those generators. Let's look at that. Shared trees, what it is, what it do. The name is shared trees, and generation graph is called biomes generator underscore sg underscore sampler trees. What the fuck does it do? It takes some points. Then it filters data by bounding shape. Then it gets some landscape data. It has some idea about points per square meter, etc., etc. Okay, so it takes some points in their bounding shape, right? And it samples the landscape data around this with this bounding shape, with the specific parameters. Then it is actually doing some noise filtering and remap density, etc., doing some transforms and outputs those points. And I guess that's how it creates 3 points. Okay, fucking great. But and there is info about what's noise to use, which is being used by spatial noise node. Okay, so that's one thing that is being used in here. Great. And shared rocks probably is the same thing, right? It has some generator, sampler rocks, which is actually getting landscape data, the same bounding shape, but without any noise. Just sample the shit, transform points randomly between those scales. Oh, that's a shitty thing, because look at it. If you are using shared rocks, your rocks always will be having this scale. Okay. So if I want to have a different scale, it won't work then? Something to ponder. What else do we have in here? We also had some pines, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and it is also using shared tree. Okay, so now we know that we are generating some points around by using those biome points with those definitions, but I still don't know how it gets assigned. So let's get back in here, I guess. No, this biome texture only samples texture. We are here. So it takes the data from generators, resolve generators from assets. This is some graph that actually takes those assets, takes those generators, processes attributes, resolves them, and outputs, okay, those generators. Fine, fine, fine. And then it runs those generators. Okay. Is the magic hidden in here? Yes, local biome cache. Bounding shape adjusted with blending range. Okay. Then it runs those generators. Colon used subtypes. Okay. Okay, so when it is here, it only has like idea about one generator, shared rocks in this case. Maybe let's take this containers forest because that's what we'll be looking at. What we were looking at. It contains the biome, the generator shared trees, right? Okay. The assets is containers forest, which is this. Not mountain forest. And local asset, there's none. And it outputs generator shared trees, generator type shared trees, generator overlap, generator graph. Okay, whatever. And that's it. Okay, so it just gives the generator. Then we have our biome cache, which we already saw it was containers forest. Then it runs those generators and we get sample points out of that. Okay. Which has what kind of data? It only has data about what generator it's been used for that, and that's it really. Okay. So run generators for the trees and blended it with the points from all of that. Biome points with those things. Okay, and then it calls some points outside of partition actors. Great. Where the fuck meshes come into play? That's what I wanted to know. Local root asset table. This is a generator mesh. Here is the mesh, local root asset table. Okay, this is the mesh. Where does it come into play? Please, I'm losing kind of my mind over here. Assigning assets. I could have just read ahead. I'm stupid. Barabash, how are your animals doing? How are your cats and dogs? Okay, so what happens here, still in the local biome core, we have points here. Then those points are being, and those asset definitions also contain something called generator. Those two things are doing a fusion dance to basically create new sampled points, new generated points, with assigned meshes to them. So that kind of how it works. So we have our local root asset table, which shows us, hey, the assets that we are trying to, spawn are those PCG spruces, PCG pines, and tree, and they have some child seedlings, from what I can see, and lots of data about those meshes. Then there is a small PCG that assigns assets by generator. So it takes the point, this biome corporate generator loop. So this is where the magic happens. This is where the points are getting in, the assets are getting in, and what's getting out of that are points with the mesh assigned to them with all the, what the hell is water distance, sun exposure? Wow, this is something that I was doing on stream like some months ago. Wait, where the fuck are meshes? I'm getting crazy because there's only generator in here. And asset ID. Okay, there's something called asset ID. And the points that are getting out of it have asset ID. Probably the asset ID is the ID on the list of assets instead of having the whole actor reference in here, right? Okay, mesh reference from here. Okay. So here we have our data for spawning with the asset ID, right? Then there are some filters that I don't know about. Then the transforms are getting assigned, if I understand correctly. And this is the moment, this is the node that actually turns this asset ID, if I see correctly. Yep. To a mesh. This is, so there are 2 points of order. Here's 1 point of order. No. Here with assigning assets, and here, biome core root transform loop. Then it does something with the assemblies, with the micro scattering. Barabash answers about his animals. Pretty good, although 2 cats have a huge beef and fight from time to time. Thankfully, my dog is just like what this word can mean in Polish. And barks when they fight and tries to break those fights. What Barabash is referring to, I think, is that dog in Polish means pies, and we are using the plural of it, psy, to describe police officers. Like in English it's pigs, in Polish it's dogs. Psy. So Barabash is saying that the dog is policing the cats to not fight between each other. So you have a little family dynamic going on, a little society going on in there. And what gets back to the biome core is actually the list of sampled points via texture, as we saw that, combined with the generated points from those points from texture, with the assets definition, and actual meshes to spawn. Great! That was the local biome core that does it, right? That's where this whole thing is being taken from, right? These are the generated points. And then it is just, you know, now I think I understand the difference, because there are priorities with those biomes, and I think, you know, when the 2 biomes are colliding with each other, there was like a blend parameter there, so they can blend a little bit, but after the blending range they should get differentiated out of it, so there's that. There's always this review change. I wonder if this is regarding, like, is this some ordering graph that cleans up data, or is this a leftover comment to other developer like, hey, I did a change, review this change, right? I'm not sure. Barabbas says, yep, and I'm their king. King Barabbas. I like the sound of that. Are you planning to get more animals? Because what, you have right now how many cats and dogs? If I remember correctly, 2 dogs and 5 cats? And are you planning on getting some more? Okay, so basically what it all means for us is that if you wanted to add something new in here, you take this BP PCG biome texture, you use whatever definition of sampling you want to do in here, you assign a texture that you want to sample, you know, balance the parameters, and assign assets. And you can assign multiple assets. Then just put it in here, and this huge volume biome core will spawn this shit for you. So you wouldn't have to go in and by hand paint landscape layer or do whatever like that inside of it. You can create texture samples, textures, either via paint or whatever, or there are, if I remember, some tools to simulate, to create like a texture for biome sampling, like some word creators, etc. And there's also a texture, let me quickly, texture editor, if I remember correctly, but it is experimental, where you can create textures via node graphs, right? So that's the way you could start spawning your own stuff, right? Can I just select this volume? Yes, I can. Something is wrong with selection in this preview, or my PC. That could be also true. Okay, but that was only one of those PCG BIOME core volumes, right? That spawns everything based on those local volumes. There's another one for runtime, for all the micro scattering. At least I hope that's how it works. Let's look into that. Landscape streaming proxy, biome point search distance. Oh, this is the search distance. It's 16 meters around. So, if I doubled it, it would be bigger. Micro scattering, ground scattering, skip scene captures. Okay, let's look into this, because that's some new shit with the GPU spawning, etc., and I know nothing about that. So this graph is a little bit bigger. Baraba says, nope, but you were close. I think what you've said is what Adus Pragi had. God damn you. I have one, Baraba says, I have 1 dog and 5 cats right now. Oh, okay, okay. So I forgot 2 dogs. I mistook that you have an additional dog. But 4 cats, only temporary. What are you planning to do with them if they are only temporary? God damn. Okay, this logic is way harder, because here with the biome core, like, okay, create a texture, create biome definitions, create list of assets, put the volume on level, it will use generators to do points for you, assign meshes, done, right? Done. You can spawn your shit, right? But with the PCG biome scattering, this looks more like a more complicated graph. Mesh scatter, asset paths. Barabbas says, eat them, duh, about the cats. But really, they will get back to Mary. Ah, okay, okay. So you just took those cats in for a while. That's nice. Okay, so what gets in here? I think I have turned on the runtime spawning in the editor. What the fuck was that? Windows be wild, yo. Let me open the cold beverage, the lemonade. Barabbas, have you been playing lately? Anything? Because I wasn't able to. I wanted to play Doom, DLC of Sea of Stars. That one actually is the first priority, and Monster Train 2, but I didn't play jack shit, and I probably won't this month. How about you? Okay, so first of all, it has PCG runtime. It is using PCG runtime partition actors to do all this shit, but it is not turned on because those are GPU graphs. There's only one ground scatter. Okay, let's look at it. What it gets from here. In the asset paths, it gets the info about cactus, microscattering, spruce, tree, and boulder microscattering. Okay. In the world transforms, it gets, as you guessed it, but where does it get it from? Ah, oh wow! Oh my god, finally! That's what I was searching for when the PCG started. And I don't know if it wasn't available back then, but it is available right now. BP volume to BP volume communication. God damn. So the biome core, the graph that I was deep diving into a second ago, is producing all those points, and then completely another volume can find this actor by this tag PCG BIOME core, and then get its data from the PCG component of what it actually created. Yes, there's this output. So now finally we can have two volumes communicating between each other. That's something that I was searching for, and oh my god, it is awesome. It is awesome. Thank you for showing that shit in this example, Epic. And this is exactly why you can have one big ass volume that is doing some bigger processing, and then, for example, some other volume, whether big or small, can actually take this processed data and do something with it, which sometimes is necessary. I'm loving it. Barabar says, I finished Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, some time ago, then started playing Oblivion. Modded shit out of it, because for me it's unplayable in its basic form. Yeah, but even when enhanced with mods, I got bored pretty quickly. Oh, so you haven't played anything new since the last time we had, ability to speak face to face. Okay, okay. Yeah, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, I have it on my wish list on every platform that I own. I really, really want to play this. The same with like Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters. But I don't have time for it, unfortunately. Okay, maybe let's close some of those assets because they are not needed for now. Let's look at this scattering. Okay, so it gets the data about what assets has been found. Some work transforms for mesh scattering already gathered from the biome core, because what you can do is, as we saw, show that, hey, here is the tree, but also here is the PCG assembly, which is basically assembly of points that could be used for further spawning of micro detail, right? And here is the same thing for ground scatter for biomes, some influence points, and weighted assets. Okay. So mesh scattering input, true, PCG asset data paths. So it creates those data paths for specific runtime assemblies. Great. And here are points of instances, right? And these are runtime assembly hash value. I think there was the same shit here. Yeah, so it will be connected by a hash value. I already see there's 2050. 2050, yes. So the comparison is between two hash values, which is faster than string values, so that makes sense. The same goes for like ground scattering inputs, etc. Okay, so it's not that bad because it is something else that already gives the points. Then those points are getting processed, and here it is, custom HLSL. Upload on GPU. This is something for GPU shit. That is not yet used because we are not in the runtime of a game. Baraba says, I can borrow it to you on Switch, I think, so you can play it on toilet. You have a physical copy of it? Or are you referring to those virtual cards that Nintendo did? Because those virtual card system actually, makes sense. For me, it's actually a nice way to lend someone your digital copy of a game. Yeah, we can arrange this to exchange the virtual cards. And I would be able to play it on toilet and before sleeping. Yeah, we're onto something, Barabas. And I don't have that many games on my Switch, but I could, you know, borrow something if you would love to. Back. But I'm not sure if I have any game that would interest you. But okay, here we have first new node, custom HLSL. Which doesn't really open source editor, node source editor. Oh, okay. I never really used HLSL inside of PCG. So you can see someone wrote custom HLSL and they are getting those points, creating the functions for them. Okay. Custom shader functions. So that's what is being uploaded here. And then something happens. These can leak resources. Okay, so it's still a work in progress, I guess. Then current tile biome. Okay, let's play runtime. Because I want to debug those PCG shit in runtime. And yet it is turned off everything. No, it's actually, wait, hold up. Now it's turned on. Okay. So we have some material, mesh, and runtime assembly hash value in here. But let's get to this, for example. Okay, I really want to like debug anything that works actually. Okay, why is that? Okay, there is something to be debugged in here. Great. So instance points, nothing. Static mesh spawner. Okay, so there is like, it uploads some, if I understand correctly, some custom shader functions, and that's it. Current tile biome points, but it's supposed to micro scattering assemblies. Okay, there's a grid size 64 meters. Okay, there's something called data count. I wonder, right now I'm trying to analyze those points that are probably getting processed for GPU. But it doesn't show any data in here, and I'm wondering if it is because of the nature that it works on GPU, that's why I don't have access to it, really. Because I don't see anything in here, right? Like, I could probably see stuff in here, no. That is interesting. There's also another, yeah, here's like processing those biome points for micro scattering in here for the current tile in the world. And I don't see jack shit. Like, there is nothing to be seen here. Let's force regeneration. And now I see some stuff. And here I don't. And now I do. That's funny. Okay, so I do have access to it. Baraba says, nah, I'm not into games right now. I even downloaded Claire Obscure 2137, very long and weird title, but didn't launch it because I'm not really motivated to do so. But on the bright side, this lack of motivation gives me motivation to work on my own game, the one I would like to play. That's the spirit. There is like this perpetually spoken myth on the internet that you gotta play all the latest games in order to make games, and I'm gonna flat out call that bullshit. Because, for example, I don't know, some of the games that defined gaming, the creators of them didn't really play video games, or they were actually creating new shit because they didn't play video games. I think it was Shigeru Miyamoto that said that he'd rather hire a gardener than a game designer to work on the game. And I mean, there is some truth to it, because I think we are far too foregone into constantly playing new games, analyzing the balance of it, etc., and making new games based on that. And we are spending not enough time actually playing around with games and trying to think of what new fun interaction we could have, what new cool shit we could add to the game. I'm kind of behind that. There, I have the whole series about game designing here, when I'm trying to learn how to think in that way. And I'll be honest, it was and it still is hard to escape this fucking box of like, okay, let me think about all the other games that I already played and copy ideas from them. And instead, like, thinking really creatively, it's hard to escape from this box. So at least for me, it is true that yes, I like playing video games still, but just for fun, not exactly for like, which elements I could steal from that game and put it into a Frankenstein of a new game, right? I know that that's how big business works, and some of the great games are being done that way, and some of the amazing games, my favorite of all times, have been made being inspired by other games, but still they always had some new cool shit in it, right? Barabas put it nicely in the chat. Well, if you want to copy existing games, then you should play new games. If you just want to convey your fantasy to a game, then you just use your creativity. Yeah, I agree. Like, the business side of things is like, you know, especially on the AAA side of things, is that big publishers want to release safe products, right? So that's why there's a big demand on game designers, programmers, and artists to basically copy stuff from other games and Frankenstein a safe game that will sell. But I think we are kind of seeing that it's stopped working, or at least you have to do it on super high quality level, right? Like, it worked in the Xbox 360 era, PS4 era, but right now what is happening with sales kind of proves that gamers might be tired of it, and then newer younger envious rather play some weird ass shit on Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite than engage with some AAA bullshit, right? And people over 30, like us, Barabas, me, and lots of other folks, are like, okay, we played this game, kind of like Video Game Donkey said. It feels like grading papers. Like, okay, I seen this mechanic done better in this game, and this mechanic done better in this game, and this thing, I don't know, lockpicking mechanic. Well, how many times you can copy from fucking Skyrim, right? So you either do it at the highest level, or your game just won't be selling. Meanwhile, indies, that's where it's at, right? Okay, enough of the off topic, because how much time I have left? I have left 35 minutes. Okay, so what is happening here? It takes some biome points that I cannot debug for some reason, but then the grid size of analysis is being changed to 64 meters, which is reasonable for microscattering. There is some biome ID assigned to it. Things are being called. There's attribute partition depending on the positions X, Y. I didn't know that the partition could be put in that way to combine both X and Y values together. So it creates lots of smaller data tables of points that have the exact same X and Y values. Then it does some processing. There's some render target. Ooh, some of this shit. Why is it off? I don't understand that. It gets grid size. And there's some execution dependency. That's the new shit that, you know, they added in. And I wanted this node for a long time, so thank you, Epic, for doing that. Because sometimes you want to process some shit, and then some other stuff, right? And because PCG, it has scheduler in code, right? That kind of takes those nodes and, at least from what I understand, analyzes, you know, tasks that needs to be done and then schedules them to be done. And it tries to do them in order, but sometimes you want to force a specific order, right, of things. And here we have like execution dependency, wait time in render frames, right? So it tells the game use scene captures that it would use some scene render target, and I cannot access any of this shit, which sucks. And this will be the wait time before the processing happens, right? So wait for the execution dependency for all of this shit to finish. Wait this amount of time in render frames, and only then it will actually, you know, go further and ground scatter run generators. Which probably that's where some subgraph is being executed actually. Point generator, is this one of those? Yes, this is also HLSL. There's the huge ass shader. These are function declarations, right? Constant declarations, shader functions definitions, and then the actual shader source. And you can edit this shit inside of it. Wow, nice. And there's the whole, this is like a whole other topic for a whole other stream, HLSL. But basically it allows you to process all those points super fast on GPU. It creates those points. I wonder if we can see this shit. We can see this shit. All those points are generated in here, and what was being put in here is, I can't see anything. So only the output I can see, huh? Okay. Then there's resolving of assets, which also I can't see for some reason, and then spawning static meshes, which also I can't see for some fucked up reason. So yeah. And then get graph parameter. Huh. That's a new node I also haven't seen. But yeah, every new node that is being basically run on GPU has this GPU annotation. So that one thing, wow, that's also something I haven't thought of. It's also run on GPU. So this resolving between points and biome assets is happening in shader. That is kind of fucking crazy. But I wonder if I would be working with the HLSL here, should I take like, have the separate text file that just contains those things and I constantly have to copy and paste them inside of those nodes? That's not might be the best case. I'd rather have, you know, a pointer to an actual HLSL code instead of like doing copying constantly the same values here. But it is like a new workflow, so you know, all is excused. So that's how this ground scattering happens, huh? Okay. And that's how it works. But still, I'm kinda not sure how to assign those assets to this shit. Okay, like I understand how we could, as we saw here, create some texture, some biome definitions and assets definitions, use some generators, it will create biome points, those big ass points, spawn static meshes, done, right? Freaking great. But where does those little green, well, those, where this shit comes from, right? Or where does this shit comes from? On the trees, right? I haven't found the answer to that yet. I see that, you know, there's this scattering, this processing done here. There's an uploading of points or uploading the declarations of functions in here to GPU. There's some attribute filter for meshes, which I also cannot fucking see. At least not on those points. There's like a mesh. And what is this mesh? It is cone. Okay. It is PCG. Okay, we will find it in a different way. Content drawer, meshes, cone, reference. Look at that. When I started browsing inside of a content drawer, all the GPU scattered things quickly disappeared. That's kind of funny. Okay, reference viewer. And if we got back in here, things from GPU get instantly instanced. So Barabash, for now you are fighting against retargeting of the plugin. Are there any more, what I wanted to say, obstacles that you need to overcome for your project to move forward, or other than convincing our friend Chris to work for you? Okay, so con is being referenced to with this PCG data asset that we show, which is that. It is PCG assembly level. Okay, we will look into that in a second, but also it is being referenced in this cactus microscattering. Let's open that up. And it is a mesh sampler that samples the cacti, for example, and transform points. And but it is just a there is nothing. I don't get it. I don't get it, I'll be honest. I was thinking that it was sampled and spawned in a different way. Not via just, hey, let's just sample this mesh and just spawn this shit here. Because I see no GPU stuff in here. So, what the fuck is going on? Will I resolve this in the next 25 minutes? We will find out. Baraba says about the other than retargeting animations and the character, what other obstacles does he have in his own personal project? He says, everything. I am the biggest obstacle. Okay, so you can overcome yourself. But I decided to leave the old character for now and try to do what I want with it. I'm working on a jetpack for the character right now, but the tutorial that I'm following uses the UE5 many, and that's why I wanted to switch. But I'll try to make it work with the old one. Yeah, I'm not sure which tutorial you're working with, but I'm not sure if you really need UE5 many to implement Jetpack. I would say like you can implement Jetpack even on a fucking cube, so you know. I think it is a good decision to leave that retargeting business and use the character that you use, right? You really don't need UE5 many to implement Jetpack at all. Like what the guy, I think I have links unlocked in here, so you can drop the link to the tutorial in here, right? Because I wonder why the hell would you need UE5 many to do, you know, Jetpack? And it's just a mode of transportation and ability. It shouldn't require a very specific very specific freaking setup of character animation. Barabbas says, yeah, I probably could if I knew Unreal Engine better, but I'm completely ignorant and I don't have motivation to learn and understand what I'm doing. Oh my god. Well, to that I would say you can use Goku and Vegeta method. That's the one that I've been using through my whole life in those situations. Hitting your head onto the brick wall until you get through. It's not the most optimized version of learning, but it works. It just demands more time, right? That's how I learned coding and making music, etc. Just constantly bashing my head against the problem until I make a dent in it. And I also didn't understand Unreal Engine at the beginning. I didn't know how to do anything together. And I was just bashing my head until it started making sense for me. It's kind of like with riding a bike when the first time, or driving a car, when the first time you're in front of the wheel, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But the more time you spend on doing the thing that you don't know what you're doing, the more you start to get at least a intuition for it, which will help you guide on the path to learning. Barabbas says, oh, I thought that you meant finding someone better than me and do the fusion dance to fuse into someone who will now know how to do it. That's one way to do it also. But I would call it Trunks and Gotenks way. Goten way. If only the Gohan method would work, that you could get very angry, scream, and suddenly you level up in your understanding of Unreal Engine. Then, you know, lots of developers would be masters because it is frustrating sometimes. Barabbas says, and I'm at the point when he tries to modify the animations. Okay, but that's the thing that I don't understand. Why would you modify animations in order to make Jetpack work? Are you just trying to make it look cool and you already have all the moving around and ability working, or whatever? Like, that's what I'm struggling with, right? Like, why would you change the modify animations just to prototype moving around with the jetpack? Unless you're at that level when you're, okay, it works, now I want to make it look cool, then of course, it makes sense. Barabbas says, or some old pervy god unlocks your potential. Oh yeah. The cheat way. Barabbas says, I'm just following each step. Okay, please send me this tutorial on Priv because I'm half expecting this is the one of the tutorials that I am so vehemently against by making this channel and showing the real, you know, like learning curve. Maybe making a functional jetpack would be something that I could do on this channel. It would be nice. Barabbas says, I can probably skip this one, but I want to do everything so I don't have to return to it. Yeah, skip it and you could return to it whenever. It doesn't matter, really, in my opinion. You can add completely different animation setup later, in my opinion. Okay, so still, I want to know how those things are getting spawned in. And I don't have the answer, really. Let me get back to meshes. The green cylinder. Okay, green cylinder. Now we're getting somewhere. The cone was misfire. Right now this is referenced in biome sample level, okay. And broadleaf forest ground scatter runtime. This is an asset that contains cylinder, yes, asset options, of course, mesh options, and this PCG, which actually contains another PCG inside of it. Ground scatter generator graph GPU, which is that. Okay, so it takes the landscape, it takes all the params, assets, biomes, which is part of that. But not only. It gets graph parameters. Which one, I'm not sure. That is weird. Landscape. And this is ground scatter generator, and ground scatter generator is being used where? Ground scattering inputs. Not here. Simple ground scatter run generators. Here where it is being used, but I cannot debug it for some reason. Oh! Okay, I got something. It is that. Okay. It is that. I got something. Okay, so it takes those points. For some reason it gets an attribute. It deletes something. Okay. And then we get to here, and once again I don't see anything. But then we get to here, and now I see anything. I see landscape data, etc, etc. We see point generator, where HLSL does its thing. I don't see those outputs. Okay. Then it resolves assets and apply properties. This is also HLSL that does its own thing and works on meshes, etc. And all of this shit is being done on GPU. Wow, nice. And assign weights, I guess. And then static mesh just spawns this shit on GPU. How does it know execute on GPU? Okay, there is this thing. Barabas says, for your information, I've sent the link on Discord. Oh, okay. I will take a peek at it. Not sure if I will be able to do it this night, but maybe tomorrow's night I will be able to do it. So yeah. I'll make sure to look into it. And I have last 15 minutes. No. Okay, but still, I know that this asset has to be referenced somewhere. Where is it? No, fuck you. Is it just being referenced in the world? I don't like it. Because the only thing I see here is that, okay, it is using this generator to use GPU and scattering and everything, right? Great, and this generator will already spawn shit on GPU. That's great. Awesome. But what does it mean that it's being used on level? What the hell do they mean? Let's get back to it once again. Asset, reference, viewer. So, does that mean that in the PCG BIOME core runtime that it should be somewhere here? Okay, guys, I understand how to work with the general, spawning of stuff and the general biomes and shit. But I'm not sure how to hook up those micro scatters. Because I only see that, yeah, this biome runtime asset template, which is actually a code class from what I see, is being referenced. I was thinking that maybe it is somehow attached to all the other biome assets and shit, right? That I could, for example, have like a biome and specify which micro scattering I want there. It turns out that it's not exactly the case. There's nothing referencing the offline biomes in here. So how the fuck does it know where to spawn and where not to spawn? It just shows that it is referenced in the level. In here probably, yeah, runtime assets. So this is the only way this stuff is being referenced, huh? So if I select this, for example, selecting in this preview is not really working for me. Okay, maybe something else. Let's select this. No. I just really want to select the landslide. Okay, the landslide is here. Okay, so it doesn't have any runtime assets. The mountain forest has. And it's also... Where are the freaking... What? Is it some boundless PCG? No, not really. Okay, so basically what we are dealing with here is... Okay, show me the... No, the local preview. The local biome cache. It is here. Okay, so it is one of those... Okay, I see the... My selection is Z fighting in here. This is the biggest volume here, and it is all of that. Okay, okay. And there is some micro scatter in here going on. And the way you work with it is when you have your volume, you put runtime asset in here, and it will just start fucking going off of it. So there is no real connection. That's the one thing that I'm not really sure if I would be setting it up in that way. I'd rather connect it to the rest of the biomes, but it kind of does connect to the rest of the biomes because let's remember, the big offline volume sends off data to the runtime volume. So it already has all the boundaries of generation of it. So you might as well use that, pre-process it, and just start spawning scatter for this example. Maybe it makes sense for this example. It might make sense. Yeah, and here you have free biome assets, just cube, cube, free cubes, right? Okay. Okay, but what about, you know, like coniferous forest? Or maybe just as I clicked here. What about this? It has runtime assets, broadleaf, ground scatter forest. And that's how it spawns all those green points, right? Yep. This green cylinder. But also another volume spawns red cylinders in here. Okay. Okay, this GPU micro scattering is way different. Mad different. Because you gotta know HLSL to process some points and then start spawning. But the results speak for themselves. It doesn't take too much memory. It doesn't take too much time to spawn this shit. I can just click force generate. Done. Right? Did you so? Split of a second and all of this scattering has been generated. which is awesome, especially when we are starting to travel. We can see how quickly it spawns. Even smaller drops, you know. If you were try to spawn this density of shit, not on GPU but through CPU, it would be mad slower. Okay, so these are the HLSL nodes. Are there any nodes that I didn't see that were interesting to me? Inline constants I saw. Explicit execution dependency we saw. The waiting, right? Additional new nodes and operators. This one. These are the ones that we didn't really see. No, set grid size we saw. And wait we saw. Custom HLSL we saw. Yeah. So we saw this shit. We saw GPU grass and micro scattering. Yep. Data interfaces. Yeah, custom HLSLs, etc. Yeah, we saw that shit. Execution efficiency. Yeah, we saw that. Metadata domains. What the hell is that? Okay, not that interesting. Yeah, and new debugging workflow, better stability. That one I'm not sure about because there were a couple of moments where what is this? Wait a second. Oh no, I gotta finish up real soon. No. Okay, okay. So there is this new freaking thing. What I wanted to do. Yes, I wanted to see what this. Jump to graph with this debug object context. Okay. That's weird. I don't understand how it works. Okay, but I guess, you know, we previewed the BIOME PCG. Like I said, this is a nice example of how you could set up things. I probably wouldn't ship games with this exact setup. If I were to, you know, like make a game based on biomes, etc., I would analyze even deeper, in a deeper way, this example, analyze the GPU microscattering, etc., maybe even take this plugin and, you know, refine it in a way that would be more connected to the project I would be working on. But there's definitely a nice idea going on in here, where you are not setting up things in level directly, hand picking, but more like generating textures, creating definitions, asset definitions, generators that would be sampling shit around you, and just putting splines and volumes and see how everything works out, right? And with the GPU and HLSL, some of the most intensive operations for microscattering you could just offload to the GPU and forget about it. So it was a shorter stream today, but that's kind of how I had to do it. And yeah, I guess that's it for me for this month. I'll be back in June, hopefully with the regular schedule of streaming 4 hours every Sunday. I hope you guys have a nice end of May and the rest of the day. And I'll for sure will be updating YouTube, Twitch, and Discord with the information about the next stream. And if you have anything to ask for, feel free in the comments, on the Discord, etc, etc. I for sure would love to look at more stuff from 5.6 preview. I want to go back to the making of my own game and learning game design and escaping the box that I have in my head, etc, etc. So, without further ado, I bid you adieu. That's how you say it? I'm not sure. I tried to be funny in a language that is not my first, which might have ended up terribly. Bye bye guys, and have a nice rest of May. Bye!